Professor Shri Niranjan Agarwal, referred to Mahatma Gandhi as Bapu. And Bapu is the right word for him because Bapu, as we all know, means father. And it is not for nothing that Indians, millions of Indians, with love and respect, called him Bapu, even when he was alive. He may have been embarrassed, as Professor Saab said, when people called him Mahatma or the Great Soul. But I think he loved this word, Bapu, because it related him to others and it related others to him. Professor Saab has spoken so eloquently about Mahatma Gandhi and his times and his legacy for all of us. And Agarwal also has shared his thoughts with all of us today in this beautiful sunny morning on us of the spring season. I really don't have much to add, but I would just say 2 or 3 points about Mahatma's legacy and his times. Professor Saab mentioned that Mahatma Gandhi has been compared in his thoughts, in his legacy, in his moorings to Gautam Buddha, to Jesus Christ. I would also like to say that in terms of his own beliefs and his spirituality, in terms of his own thought and understandings, he comes close to these 2 great divine souls. But the challenge which Mahatma Gandhi faced was completely different. Unlike Gautam Buddha, he did not start by renouncing the world. In fact, he began by embracing it. He began by embracing the challenges which came his way uninvited. He did not ask to be thrown out of that compartment at the Petersburg railway station. But when the challenge came to him, he realized it was not his fight. It was a fight not only for him, but for the whole humanity. And this is very central to Mahatma Gandhi's thought and his legacy. The connection between the individual and the rest of the world. Living a life in the midst of the world, in the midst of all the challenges, fighting for the liberation of not only his own country, but against the laws that put down citizens belonging to other races, individuals belonging to other races and communities as secondary citizens. His fight in South Africa, his fight everywhere else in the world, his message to the rest of the world for freedom, not only of the individual but of the society, of the country. I think that is something unique to Mahatma Gandhi. The second thing I find very unique about Mahatma Gandhi is his simplicity. There is a famous sketch of Mahatma Gandhi, just a few curved lines, and you have his portrait. Here also, to the extent that someone very famous called him the naked fakir. But he was neither naked nor a fakir. I would say that in terms of his simplicity, and it is his simplicity which in my eyes made him the most endowed person in the world. This simplicity is his hallmark, and the hallmark also of his message. As we know, he said, "I have nothing new to give to the world. Truth and non-violence are as age-old as the mountains." And there comes the third point that I wanted to mention. They are as age-old as the mountains, but how many of us actually practice them? So the great Mahatma, the great soul, Bapu, began not by preaching, but by practicing. And to me, this is the greatest difference between him and the mere mortals like me. Relating to the world, simplicity, these can mean little. They will still mean, but they can mean little unless we start practicing. And Mahatma Gandhi began his struggle, his journey that we all pay tribute to today by first practicing himself. Self-discipline, the desire to change oneself, begin the change with oneself before going out and trying to change the world. I think that is the starting point of all of the journeys that culminate into shining lights for the society, for the world. And that is the message of Mahatma that has appealed to me as an individual as most. But coming from India, a land which will, I think, be eternally indebted to him, not only for the freedom of our own motherland, but also the message that that freedom, that independence gave to the rest of the world and inspired the struggle of so many other countries, of hundreds of millions of other people. I think coming from India, I would also say that Mahatma's legacy is in understanding the soul of India. The soul not merely in terms of our civilizational values, but also what made the Indian society. We all know the famous Champaran Satyagraha, where he fought on behalf of the farmers. He fought on behalf of the industry. He fought on behalf of the working class. He fought on behalf of hundreds of millions of Indians and people in other countries. He realized that political freedom is only an instrument. The real freedom lies with empowerment of the people. What we call today as empowerment was Mahatma Gandhi's notion of self-sufficient rural communities. Few minutes ago, Ravi was mentioning to me about the Tamil school here, where the children were asked to mention 2 keywords about Mahatma Gandhi. Many of them mentioned ahimsa, but I think one mentioned self-sufficiency. I think this is a great message. And Mahatma's notion of self-sufficiency was not an island isolated from the rest of the world, but basically empowering people to realize their own potentials. In India, today as we grow at a very fast rate, as we employ technology to empower people, as we bring hundreds of millions of people above the poverty and empower them to realize their own potential, I think this message of making ourselves self-sufficient to realize our potential but yet remain connected to the rest of the world, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one great family. I think this is, in a sense, the deepest understanding of the Indian civilizational heritage and our values. I would just like to conclude this part of our tribute to Mahatma Gandhi by thanking all of you once again for being here today and joining us in paying our homage to this great soul whose legacy is not the property of India. It's not just limited to one country or one nation, but it belongs, like all great things, like the air, the oxygen, the greenery, the beauty, the nature, the sunlight. It belongs to the world, and therein lies our duty to live this legacy. Live this legacy by trying to begin with ourselves, to begin by practicing, and that practice in itself becomes the preaching, without actively trying to be a preacher. Before I step aside, I would also like to mention with great tribute and respect that today also marks the birth anniversary of another great son of India, the second Prime Minister of India, Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri. Another great freedom fighter, another illustrious son of India, again who came from a very humble background, from my home state of UP, in fact from Allahabad, whose childhood again was from very humble backgrounds. There is a very famous story about him that he did not have money to pay to the boatman to take him across the river, and so he swam across the river to go to his school. With those type of humble beginnings, he rose up as a prominent light of India's national movement, of India's freedom struggle, and succeeded Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru as the Prime Minister of India. But that's not his personal achievement. He was India's Prime Minister at a very critical time when a foreign invasion, a military invasion, was thrust upon us, and when India was struggling to feed hundreds of millions of her children. At that time, Lal Bahadur Shastri ji gave the slogan, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. It captured It captured what was to be done, what was being done at that time so succinctly, and it motivated the entire nation. There is another story about him I'd just like to share. I don't know how far it is correct, but I read it in one of the magazines when I was a child, so I think I should share with you. Lal Bahadur Shastri, when he became Prime Minister, his mother was still alive, and his mother lived in Allahabad. Lal Bahadur Shastri ji's pet name, घर का नाम नंदू था, Nandu. So one day, an old woman alights on the railway platform of Delhi from a train and says, "मुझे नंदू के घर जाना है." So now everybody is surprised, who is this woman, and the people think, oh, this is an old lady. Perhaps she's not sure where she has come. So people ask her, "माता जी, आप ठीक जगह आए हो? आप कहाँ से आए हो? दिल्ली में हो? किसके यहाँ जाना है?" And all those type of questions. And after some time, she says, no, but everybody knows Nandu. He is very famous. तो बहुत powerful है. वो तो प्रधानमंत्री है. So then people think that this lady is really not sure of what she is talking about. But then she insists that please try to find out. And then people find out really, yeah, she is the mother of Lal Bahadur Shastri, and she wanted to go to Lal Bahadur Shastri's house. A very touching and very moving story of simplicity incarnate. His mother is coming to meet him, to visit him, and this lady finds her own way, makes her own arrangements, comes to the railway station on her own, takes the train, alights at Delhi on her own, and is perfectly willing to meet the challenge of finding the house of the Prime Minister of India in the capital of India. I think, just as what is written here, generations to come would scarcely believe that such a one in flesh and soul ever walked up on this earth. I think generations to come will scarcely believe that it can happen that a mother of a Prime Minister comes in this way to visit his son. But that, ladies and gentlemen, was the spirit which embodied India's struggle, which embodied the flame which these great people kept alive and passed on to the generations, ours and the generations which came before us. So on that note, I would once again thank all of you, and my wish is that we not only continue to honor Gandhiji's legacy with tribute and respect, but in our practice, and we connect his legacy to the rest of the world as best as we can, and many of you are already doing that. Thank you very much. Have a good day.